my god, I was trying so hard to not cough there. Off to a great start. Off to a great start. Excuse me. Sorry. Pardon me. Oh my gosh. Ugh. That was probably the weirdest stream intro I've ever done. Hi. What's going on, everybody? It's me. It's NJChef, your Cosmic Dragon VTuber. And this... Oh my god, it just dawned on me right now. Chat. It just dawned on me right now. Personal, I'm fine. I'm good. That was just me. Oh god. I don't know if y'all saw on like Discord or Twitter. Oh god, I forgot to tweet. I'm live. I'm a professional. I know how to do this. I'm the best. I don't know if y'all saw on like Twitter or Discord today. I am tired. I am a sleepy dragon today. I wanted to wake up early to get some things done, but I also went to bed pretty late, so I'm running on not a lot of hours of sleep at the moment. But I just sort of made an executive decision, and it's just like, you know what? I'm not gonna move back stream or anything. I'm not gonna cancel stream or whatever. we're just gonna do it. We're just gonna go on and get it done, and yeah, here we are. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We're good. We're good. All right. Don't mind me. Just tweeting when I was supposed to probably tweet this earlier. You think my brain would process the fact that scheduled tweets are in fact a thing, and I could have taken care of this hours ago, but no. No, your boy had to go and fucking entirely forget. Hi, bird. Oh, no worries. I get you. Totally understand. Have a wonderful day. Aha, there you are. Chat, don't mind me. I'm just resizing you. I'm resizing you so you're fit, so you actually fit in your home. Because I keep forgetting that the YouTube chat is slightly the YouTube chat widget is slightly larger than the Twitch one. So I kind of forget I actually have to resize y'all. But anyway, hello, welcome everyone. How are you? If you're noticing something a bit different today, I actually turned on slow mode in chat today, and I did that on purpose. I did that on purpose just so we can avoid shall we say, our unwanted guest from last week. Let's just leave it at. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Yeah. I turned on slow mode on purpose today because I wanted to avoid our mystery guest from last week. But if things start getting a little bit out of hand, well, it's fine because I remembered how I actually remember how to turn on subs only mode. Which in hindsight probably should have done from the beginning, but we'll find out. We'll figure that out. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, chat. Don't worry. But yeah, I'm tired. I'm a little bit eepy today, but I'm doing fine. And the excitement about Warhammer 40k 10th edition is literally the thing that's driving me to get the stream done today. And also, I mentioned it yesterday. But chat, take a good look. This is the last time you're going to be seeing this model. Because tomorrow, I'm so fucking nervous. Chat, I don't think you can actually, I don't think you can grasp exactly just quite how bloody nervous I actually am. Because because, oh my god, I'm nervous. Oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited for tomorrow. I'm also incredibly nervous for tomorrow, but yeah. Take a good look because this is the last time you'll see this model. The chef code is staying. Don't you know, don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. The chef code is staying. I'll find a way to keep the chef code. But yeah. I'm excited and nervous. Oh buddy. They made Warhammer 40,000 and won. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's the announcement. Goodbye, everybody. Stream's over. No, I'm kidding. It's not. It's not. Oh my god. But yeah, you'll notice also in chat, I updated channel membership badges. So if you join membership now, you can actually see what it looks like, or you can just take a look at Ayashi's name in chat because it shows up there too. It's called the Drake Flame Crest, and I love how it turned out. It's great. It will actually change color the longer you stay in membership too. So, Ayashi, I actually think you're coming up on 1 month of membership, so that badge is changing color soon. That badge is changing color soon. And speaking of YouTube memberships, just a very quick announcement. Just getting this announcement out of the way now. We're having our first membership stream. Let me try that again. We're looking at our first members only stream next Friday. So go ahead and join membership now if you want in on that. It's gonna be fun. I figured out what we have planned. I made a membership post about it already, but I'll let y'all know now. And then the general public will know via Twitter on Sunday when I normally drop my weekly stream schedule. But I'm gonna let you all know now. Our first membership only stream is gonna be happening next Friday, and it's going to be a movie night. Yeah, we're gonna hang out and watch a movie together. So find a way to legally grab the movie for next week, for next Friday. And it's actually one of my favorite DC animated movies. It is Batman Under the Red Hood. And if you don't know the story of the Red Hood in the Batman mythos, oh, this movie's a really good, but also incredibly heavy look at that story. Oh my god. Yeah, no, it's gonna be a fun one. It will be members only. So join membership if you don't, if you're not already. So you can join me and hang out and chat while we watch. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be real fun. All right, I've yammered on. Oh god, excuse me. I've yammered on enough. Let's get to the main event. All right, friends. Oh god, chat, where'd you go? There you are. Not on stream, but on like on my end. No, I found you. I found you. Y'all can't hide from me. All right. Friends, it's a couple of months in, but we are in the midst. We are in the midst, and we are in smack dab in the middle of a brand new, well, not the middle, but like, it's still early days. Like the Games Workshop literally only just released the first FAQ for 10th edition, but we are in a brand new edition of Warhammer 40k. Take everything you knew about 9th edition and a lot of the other previous editions of Warhammer 40k and just yeet them out the window. because everything you knew about the game has changed. Everything from force organization to faction abilities to even the core rules. Everything has been streamlined. Everything has been collated actually on the Warhammer community website. So the way what Games Workshop did differently for the launch of Warhammer 40K, and it's something that the community has been asking Games Workshop to do for quite some time, and it's the fact that you can grab the rules, not just the core rules, but the rules for your specific faction directly off the Warhammer community website for free. And they announced that. And on 10th edition launch day, the army rules for every single faction in Warhammer 40K, as well as the core rules for 10th edition, were all live on warhammercommunity.com, free to download, and that's where I got them. So we've got the core rules over here, and then because they are my main army, we're also going to be talking about the Space Marines today. I do also have the army rules for orcs. I haven't had a chance to thoroughly look at them as much as I have the Space Marines, but I do like some of the things that Games Workshop has done. There have been a lot of big changes. New units have been finally folded in to army lists, and some units from past editions are actually missing. If not missing, just straight up gone from the codex, which is a choice. Which is a choice. I can't tell if it's a good choice yet or a bad choice, because full disclosure, I have not yet actually played a game of 10th edition. The keyword being yet. There is a hobby shop, there is a tabletop / comic book store / toy store very close by me. And I do want to go down there at some point, army list in hand, hit up the tabletop crew, the 40K crew over there, and just be like, hey, listen, I haven't played a game of 10th edition yet. Who wants to play? So yeah, like I've been saying this. I've been saying this for a long time in the run up to 10th edition launch. If you're new to the game, if you're new to the game system, this is the best time to get in to Warhammer 40K, because everyone is on the same page. Everyone is learning everything from the ground up right now. Is this place on a first name basis with you? A few people are, actually. A few people are, actually. 2 former employees at the store who still go to the store to play tabletop stuff, as well as a current employee of the store, are on a first name basis with me because I frequent them so much. I also just realized, hang on, chat, don't be alarmed. I'm just making it easier. I'm just making it easier for people to see you, because I just realized how small you were, and I did not mean to make you all that tiny. But also now I've got to do that. Whoop. Okay, we're fine. Yeah, there you are. All right, chat. Enjoy your new home. There you are. Haven't been there in a while. Yeah, no, Warlock. I know. Before many, I say many years ago, quote unquote, but it's literally just in like 2019 is when it started. But like towards the end of 2019, we were putting together and running a weekly 40K league, where like tournament style, round robin tournament style, we would come in every week and just start racking up points and see who was on the leaderboard, and then the next week we would come in with a brand new army list with a different points level, and then we would just continue that tournament. And it was great. It was called Warhammer 40K Escalation, and we had some really cool things going for it. And then COVID happened. And that shut down that possibility pretty damn quickly, unfortunately. But yeah, no, the store survived, thank God. The store survived. They actually underwent a really neat renovation and got some new employees in there too, so it was great. I really want to go back. I really want to go back at some point and get some games in. Get some games in with the old crew down there. Oh God, ooh, I scrolled way too fast for that. Okay, so what's changed exactly in Warhammer 40k 10th edition? It starts literally with the turn order. It starts literally with the turn order. Because they've redesigned everything from the ground up. They've redesigned and streamlined everything from the ground up. So there used to be 7 phases per turn. There used to be 7 phases per turn in the previous edition, 9th edition of Warhammer 40k. I believe it was command, movement. No, sorry, it was command, psychic, movement, shooting, charge, fight, morale. And that was the turn order for one player. And then they would move on to the turn order for the next player, and that would be turn 1 of the game. And each game could have anywhere between 5 to 7 turns before the battle would end. Or it could end sooner, depending on different victory conditions. All of that is to say was, yeah, that turn order was bloated beyond belief. Bloated beyond belief. They've streamlined it down to 5. They have streamlined it down to 5 phases per turn, which, thank God. Thank God they did. It is now just command, movement, shooting, charge, and then fight. Psychic phase has been rolled into the shooting phase, I believe? No, never mind. No, because psychic powers now are now list on the card when they are supposed to take effect. So if it takes effect during the movement phase, you can activate it there. If it takes effect during the shooting phase, you activate it there. The morale phase, I believe, has been rolled into the end of the fight phase. So you just check morale immediately after the end of the fight phase, which is, I don't know why they didn't do that in the first place. I don't know why they didn't do that in the first place, I'll be honest, but I'm glad they did it now. I am very, very glad they did it now. And this is just a cool, I think this is neat, because it just shows off A, all the units, the new stuff in the Leviathan box set, and B, it shows off the scale of Warhammer 40k for anyone new to the game, which is neat. I like that. So some of the core concepts of 40k carry over into 10th edition, but there are some new ones as well. Mostly that everything you'll need for a unit in your army is now contained on that unit's datasheet. And we'll get to datasheets when over here when we look at the Space Marine stuff for 10th edition 40k. But so you don't need to go looking through rule books upon rule books upon rule books, because let me paint this picture for you, chat. Towards the end of 9th edition Warhammer 40k, it got kind of ridiculous with how many things you had to bring along for a game of 40k. For a one-on-one game, you would have to bring a Vikor rulebook, your army's codex, which is your army rulebook, any FAQs that Games Workshop would have printed out at that point, or would have distributed for download on the Warhammer community website at that point. And then any mission books, if you're playing a specific mission, like towards the end of 9th edition Arcs of Omen, you would need the Arcs of Omen mission handbook as well. So you would have 4 different rule books you'd have to cart around with you, on top of your dice, on top of your measuring tape, on top of your army. So it was just like, GW, please stop this. Stop having to make us carry a goddamn library with us if we're gonna go and play 40K. Now the fact that everything is available digitally, I can just download everything into my phone and then just take what I need with me in a separate bag, and then that's it. Like, that is a godsend. That is a fucking godsend. Oh my lord. Oh, that's fantastic. So, the most core, like the core rules, the central concepts that govern all players of 40K are in this data sheet right here. So a bit like D&D 3rd edition with all the extra books. Exactly, Fetch. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So the different missions, which we will touch on later. The armies, which is like the number of models of a certain faction that you have, like physically in your possession. The units, unit sizes, enemy models, friendly models. Fairly simple stuff. Keywords. This is something they, this is what governs what rules affect which units now. This is a concept they introduced in 9th edition, and it's a concept they kept over and streamlined in 10th edition, which I really, really like. So if you look at a unit's data sheet, and I'm just going to scroll down to an example data sheet for you on the Space Marines side. Here we go. If you look at the Primaris Captain's data sheet, the stat block we'll get into, don't worry. The abilities, and if you look all the way at the bottom, and it is a 2-sided data sheet, by the way. If you look all the way at the bottom, you'll see several keywords. Infantry, character, grenades, Imperium, Tacticus, Primaris, and Captain. Now, what all these keywords denote, what these keywords will denote is certain rules that exist not just in the core rule book, but in when you're mustering your army for battle. Certain rules will affect models with certain keywords. So if a rule, for example, that would affect something that is an infantry model, and as long as that keyword is present on that model specific data sheet, that rule will affect them, etc., etc. That is probably one of the best examples of really, really good streamlining that Games Workshop has introduced in the previous edition and the current edition as well. They've made it really easy. They've made it really, really easy now in 10th edition to let you know what affects what, essentially. Oh God, seriously? I think I underestimated Jesus. I think I underestimated the size of how. Hold on. There. I did not realize just how far out this chat widget would scroll. Good God almighty, that's impressive. That's honestly impressive. Good Lord almighty. Oh, that's fun, Fetch. Yeah, I also have a dedicated D&D group We're on a bit of a hiatus now, but we meet weekly, and it's pretty fun. This campaign has been absolutely wild. this campaign has been absolutely wild. So if you're new to 40K, the concept of unit coherency is gonna have to be something that you grasp almost immediately. I'll tell you right now, as a veteran of Warhammer 40K, and again, for people who do not know, I've been playing since 5th edition. Christ, I've been at this game for a while. I've been at this game for a while. Let's see. Yeah, I have been at this game for a while. Unit coherency is something that doesn't get brought up often. It doesn't get brought up often, but it's a rule that exists in the game that if you forget about it, it may come back to bite you in the ass. And what unit coherency boils down to is just, you need to keep your models a certain amount of space away from each other. Because at its core, Warhammer 40K is a squad-based army, or a squad-based tabletop game. And your squads need to be, you know, the members of your squads need to be fairly close to one another. It's to represent on the tabletop their lines of communication. And what it boils down to is that your units need to be on the tabletop within 2 inches of each other horizontally, or 2 inches or 5 inches within each other vertically, because there are some instances where they're like either terrain or a custom board or what have you. Your squads may be split up on different floors. And again, and also it is determined by your squad size. So if you've got anywhere between 2 to 6 models, as long as you're 2 inches away from another model, you're fine. If it's 7 or more models, if you're within 2 inches of 2 other models, you're fine. And again, as a 40K vet, since 5th edition, this is a rule that not a lot of people are too much of a stickler for, but there are very specific situations where it might come into play. It's just something to keep in mind in the back of your brain. Kron, hello, favorite army? Space Marines. I have been playing Salamander's Chapter Space Marines since I started the game, which is 5th edition. So yeah. I've been in this game for a long time. I played the same faction for that entire time as well. Yeah, I do have an orc army. I do have an orc army, but my main faction is and forever will be Salamander's Space Marines, Salamander's Chapter Space Marines. Salamander specifically because I just love them. I love their lore. I love how their armor looks. Just like they literally have flames painted on their armor. It's fantastic. It's really, really good. So yeah, unit coherency basically boils down to keep your dudes together. Keep your dudes together. Engagement range is a very roundabout way. It's a very roundabout way to explain how close your models are to enemy models on the battlefield, on the tabletop. So they're within 1 inch horizontally and 5 inches. I'm gonna be making that mistake a lot. I apologize. But 1 inch horizontally and 5 inches vertically. That is known as engagement range. And as long as you are within engagement range of an enemy model on the tabletop, i.e. 1 inch or 5 inches depending, if you're 1 inch away or within 1 inch of an enemy model on the tabletop, you cannot place your model there. You cannot end a normal advance or fall back move there. We'll cover those, don't worry. Basically, what this boils down to is you cannot end any sort of movement, and you cannot set up any one of your models within 1 inch of an enemy model on the tabletop. That's what engagement range boils down to, and that's very specific. It's specifically worded that way for a whole suite of rules: deep strike, infiltrators, charge moves, etc., etc. This is something to keep in mind, because this is where, like, really, like, you need to start thinking ahead when moving your models, because if you fudge it up, if you end within engagement range at all, you might screw up a charge move, you might screw up the range of your weapons, etc., etc. More than anything else, movement and planning are the two biggest things that you are going to have to grasp when it comes to any sort of game of Warhammer 40k, because that's where all of your planning comes from. That's where all of your staging comes from. That's where all of your tactics come into play. Is like 90% of a game of Warhammer 40k is mentally trying to figure out where your opponent's going to go and how you're going to counter whatever movement they set up, which is really, really neat. Also, oh yeah, just a this has been a tip since the inception of the game, but how do you deal with wobbly model syndrome? Meaning that what happens when a model that you have can't stand up straight? Now you're saying to yourself, Chef, aren't they glued onto bases? Aren't they glued onto, like, big bases? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. But given whatever terrain may be on the battlefield at the time, even with those bases, your models may not be able to stand up. They might fall over. So, sort of like a handshake rule or a gentleman's agreement, and this is just from my experience or having played for so long with so many different opponents, is that you don't really have to keep your models standing up straight. If you just sort of like lean them, and as long as they're standing, as long as they can still stay on the battlefield, it's fine. Like, even if somebody falls over, you know, you can just move them back and stick him back in a unit coherency, or it's just like, oh yeah, he's there, you know, like, he's supposed to be there. Then, like, if you explain that to your opponent, like, 9 times out of 10, 19 times out of 20, they'll be like, yeah, don't worry, I got it. I get you. I know what you're talking about. It's fine. There's not going to be a lot of, not unless you're doing, like, big Warhammer 40k tournaments, people aren't going to be a really a stickler about stuff like that, you know. Magnetic terrain would be a fun idea. That would be a pain in the ass to set up, though. I'm not magnetizing every single one of my models. I'm sorry. Warlock, I get what you're saying, but I'm not fucking magnetizing every single one of my models. I'm sorry. That is a level of dedication I do not currently have the time to undertake. Another core tenet of Warhammer 40k is what for the longest time Games Workshop is touted as being Warhammer 40k and Warhammer Fantasy, aka Warhammer Age of Sigmar. What Games Workshop has touted as being their largest selling point is what they call real-time line of sight. So how would you determine if your model can see the thing it's shooting at? You crouch down and try to get behind where your model is pointing at, and you look with your eyes, with your special eyes, as if you were in the POV of your model, and then you look to see what your model can see. And that is how you determine if your target is visible or not. It is literally real-time line of sight, which is really cool, but also can be a little divisive, which will, it all depends on just how crowded the board is when it comes to terrain. So for example, in this example right here, if you're looking at this, oh God, I just poked my computer monitor. Oh, did I? Okay, good, nothing. No, we're fine. So in this scenario here specifically, if you're looking at, say you're looking at this Space Marine right here, and he is behind what is known as a Prometheum transfer pipe, like a Promethean fuel pipe. You can see more than 50%. At the very least, you can see 50% of the model, right? You can literally see the Marine and his weapon from the waist up. As long as 50% of the model is visible, that model to you is visible. That model to you is visible. Valid target, you can shoot at it. As long as one model in a unit is visible, the unit itself is considered visible. I know what you must be saying. Chef, that doesn't make fucking sense. That doesn't make any sense at all. How does one guy mean that the other four guys are visible? If you think about it this way, if you're one dude in a squad and you have to stay close to one another, and one person is visible, you're immediately going to think to yourself, there's got to be more people there. There have to be more people there, right? Right? That's sort of what it boils down to, in a roundabout way. In a roundabout way. And for the final example, obviously, if they're out in the open, be it one person or the entire squad, they're fully visible. They're fully visible. No questions asked. No half cover. This is just determining visibility. This is just determining visibility, Warlock. We'll get to cover soon, but in general, this is just determining visibility. We'll get to cover soon. Don't worry. Dice. You really only need to worry about one type of dice in Warhammer 40k. That's D6s. You will, however, learn very quickly. You're gonna need a lot of D6s in Warhammer 40k, right? You're gonna need a lot of D6s in Warhammer 40k. For example, let me scroll back to this example right over here. So one Space Marine, if you catch him in melee, which we will get to also, if you catch him in melee during the fight subphase, he has 3 attacks. Now multiply that by 5. So the entire squad, if they're caught up in melee, they will be throwing out 15 attacks. Which means you, as the player, as the controlling player, will need to pick up 15 D6s and roll them. By the way, incredibly satisfying sound. Incredibly satisfying sound. So you only need to worry about one type of dice versus like, versus like D&D, where you need like a D6, a D20, a D4, a D8, a D10, a D100, right? You only need one type of dice here, it's a D6, but you're gonna need a lot of D6s. Also, sometimes a lot of rules a lot of rules or a lot of abilities will require you to make what is known as a D3 roll. There are specialized dice for D3, but if you don't have access to the special D3 dice, what you can do is in order to make a D3 roll on a D6 is very simple. If you just roll the D6, if it pops up a 1 or 2, that's a 1. If it pops up as a 3 or a 4, that's a 2. If it pops up a 5 or a 6, that's a 3. That is the quickest way to determine a D3 roll on a D6, right? So rerolls. There are rules that will specify you can re-roll a dice, and there are rules that will make mention to something that is referred to as an unmodified dice roll. So rules will sometimes tell you to add a certain number to your D6 roll. So I'm going to use another Space Marine example. One of the weapons in the Space Marine arsenal deals out D6 plus 3 damage, correct? So if I were to roll a 5 on that D6, I would add the 3. So the amount of damage that would immediately be dealt out is 8. Some rules will tell you to add that number either before or after what is known as an unmodified dice roll, which means you roll a d6 and then that number is the roll. That is known as an unmodified roll. Some rolls will tell you to add 1 to that roll or subtract 1 to that roll, etc., etc. Some rules will tell you to roll multiple d6s at once, 2d6, 3d6, and so on. Just pick up the number of d6 specified. And then, as a veteran player, I can tell you right now, sometimes there's gonna be things on the battlefield that will affect your dice in a positive or a negative way. It's gonna screw up how they roll. So as a veteran player, I can give you a tip, which is use the flattest part of the table when rolling your dice. If the battlefield you and your opponent are playing on is a little too crowded to roll your dice there, use the flattest part of the table to do so. Just make sure that your opponent can still see your dice rolls, because, you know, it affects them. They've got to see what you're rolling. But there's 2 situations where you would have to re-roll a d6 that's not covered by a rule in-game. And that's cocked dice, or if the situation just so happens where one of the dice you happen to be rolling rolls off the table and onto the floor. In that situation, where one of your dice that you rolled for something in-game accidentally rolls off the table and onto the floor, if you and your opponent see that, or like, then just like pick up the dice and roll it again once. Don't re-roll it again. Don't try for a better roll. Just be like, oh, sorry, that fell on the floor. Let me get that, and then roll it where both of you can see it. You know, common courtesy, right? Don't be that guy. Don't try to cheat in a friendly game. The other situation where you may have to re-roll your dice outside of a rule or an ability is cocked dice. It's what's known in the community as cocked dice. And what that means is if you roll a d6 on the table and for whatever reason your d6 ends up in a position because of the terrain or position of your model, etc., etc., your d6 ends up in a position where you can't tell what number landed face up, right? We've all been there. It's happened. I know how d6s roll. I've seen some d6s, I swear. I've seen d6s defy gravity at some point. But in that case, the most fair way I've seen to determine whether a dice is cocked or not is take a d6 and balance it, try to balance it on top of the d6 that you think is cocked. If the other d6 stays level, the dice isn't cocked and you just take whatever roll that was. If the other d6 that you tried to balance on top of it falls off in any manner, then the d6 that you're looking at is cocked, pick it up and roll it again. That's the most fair way to do it that I've ever seen. That is definitely the most fair way to do it that I've ever seen. And it's probably the most fair way most other players will accept in games of 40K. So yeah. Oh, Santa, hey, what's going on? How are you? I love that name. That name's great. I don't play Genshin, but that's very good. That's very good. All I know of that character specifically is that they are in fact an arsonist. They make things blow up. Which is very funny. Which is very funny. All right, now we come to the battle round order. These are the 5 phases that occur in each round of a game. And one round consists of 2 player turns. So player 1 takes their turn, goes through all 5 phases. Player 2 takes their turn, goes through all 5 phases, and that is the end of one battle round. Right? Battle round, turn, phase. We've got that breakdown? Good. We've got that breakdown. Let's move on, because this is all new stuff from here on out when it comes to Warhammer 40K. Really, Warlock? Really, Warlock? I need to bonk one of my own mods, I swear to God. Anyway, so the command phase consists of 2 sub-phases, command and battle shock. So, command starts off, the command phase begins with both players, the player whose turn it is and the other player, by receiving 1 command point. And that has to be the most unfortunate abbreviation for a phrase I've ever seen. Moving on. So each player starts off the command phase by receiving 1 command point each, and these command points can be spent during the course of the battle to activate stratagems or abilities, which we will get to. Simple enough? Simple enough. Second subphase of the command phase is the battle shock phase, which during the course of the battle, you will begin to lose models, you will begin to lose entire units out of squads, right? And as the squad size begins to deplete, for example, if I, as a controlling player, have a full squad of Intercessor Marines, like Primaris Space Marines, their squad maxes out at a squad size of 10. But let's just say during the course of the battle, that squad size has decreased from 10 to 6, which means I have lost 4 Marines out of that squad. They're not quite below half strength yet, but if they were to lose, say, 2 more, go down from 6 to 4, then they're below half strength, which is another concept we will go over soon enough. If that is the case, I would have to take 2d6 and roll that and test that against the model's leadership, which, if you look at a data sheet for a Space Marine, let's find the Intercessors specifically. Where are they? Assault Intercessor Squad. No, I need the regular boys. Here we are. Here we are. Okay. I would have to roll 2d6 and compare that to the squad's leadership characteristic, abbreviated here as simply LD. And you'll notice it is a 6 plus. So what does that mean? If the result is greater than or equal to the best leadership characteristic of the unit, the test is passed. Right? So, let's say on that 2d6, I rolled a total of 10. That is above a 6. They are fine. They are not considered battle shocked. If, however, that test is failed, instead of a 10 on a 2d6, let's say I rolled a 3. That is below the squad's leadership value of 6 plus. The squad is then considered battle shocked. Their objective control value falls to 0. If they fall back, they immediately must take a desperate escape test, and the controlling player, i.e. myself, can no longer use stratagems to affect that unit until the next command phase, until the next battle shock test is passed. And we'll get to what a desperate escape test is soon, but objective control. Chef, what is objective control? What is OC? Glad you asked. The new thing, one of the new things, and I actually do like this change, by the way. One of the new things that they added, right, to 10th edition is the concept of the objective control statistic, the objective control stat. And what that means is you take the objective control characteristic, which in the case of an intercessor marine is 2. That is 2 per model. So if the squad size numbers as 5, that squad's objective control value is now 10. You see how this works? Now, what does that mean? If a unit with an objective control value of 10 comes up against an enemy unit with an objective control unit of 5 for whatever reason, then the one with a high of an objective control score is the one who technically controls that objective, right? Now, if 2 squads were to both approach that objective with equal objective control scores, then that objective would be contested, meaning that nobody controls that. So you see how important it is to start killing off units or killing off members of an enemy squad to lower their objective control value and to take that objective back from them. In previous editions, it used to be that only troops, units that would have the troops battlefield role could score and contest objectives, which led to some wild instances. This, I think, however, is a bit more tactical. So if you fail a battle shock test, your unit's your unit's objective control characteristic just dropped to 0. It's just flat out 0 now, which is just insane. So it's really, really important for you to roll well on your battle shock tests, number 1, and number 2, keep your units safe, you know. Here we go. Starting strength, below half strength, and destroyed. Right. So what does that mean? The number of models a unit contains when it is added to your army is known as its starting strength. So again, back in my example, if I have a full squad of Primaris Space Marines, 10, that is their starting strength. If they go below 5, then they are considered below half strength. If I lose all of them, then the unit is considered destroyed. Right? Simple, simple. This is something they brought back in 10th edition, and I'm glad they did. In previous editions, characters, or independent characters, as it was known back in the day, could be attached to units. They could join a unit for a battle. So, for example, take my squad of Intercessor Marines. There's 10 of them. And then I can take a Primaris Captain and add him to that. Oh god, sorry chat, I was trying to gently scroll through the page and it did not work out. And I can take him and add him to that squad of Intercessors, right? So the squad of Primaris Marines, their starting strength now technically is 11. Because it's 10 plus 1, that's 11. Also, if they're sitting on an objective now, remember, the objective control characteristic of one Primaris Space Marine is a 2. Multiply that by a squad size of 10, their objective control is now 20. Add the Primaris Captain into the mix, that is now an objective control value of 21. So now you need to beat a 21 on OC to get them off that objective, which is really cool. This adds another layer of tactical flexibility to the game, which I kind of enjoy. I enjoy. And the fact that there are pros, there are a lot of buffs that character units can actually give just by letting them join infantry units. I'm really glad they brought this back. I'm really glad they brought this back. This is really neat. So, now that the command phase is over, we figured out what units are battle shocked and which ones are not. We've rolled for any battle shock tests. We've collected our command points. What's next? Phase 2. Movement. On every data sheet, for every unit, character, or vehicle, movement is denoted by this characteristic over here, picked out by the letter M. Every distance, be it weapon range or movement ranges, in Warhammer 40k is measured in inches. Which is weird to me considering Games Workshop is a UK-based company, and I'm fairly sure they use the metric system over there. I don't know why they would specifically use inches for this, but okay, sure. Freedom units. I'll take it. But as you can see, our Primaris Captain here has a movement characteristic of 6. So the maximum number of inches he can move in a single turn is 6 inches. And everybody loves a good 6 inches. Don't take that out of context. Excuse me. What was I talking about? Yeah, all right, movement phase. So, this is known as a normal move. So if I were to take my Primaris Captain and move him up the board, I can only move him up the board for a total of 6 inches. And this is where having something like a tape measure comes in. You're gonna need one for 140k. I'm gonna tell you that right now. You're gonna need one for 40k. Don't ha me. Actually, I know what I said. For better or for worse, I know what I said. So, I'm getting off kilter. I'm getting off kilter and only on phase 2. So in general, all right, I'm back, I swear, I'm back. In general, when you're moving a model, you can't have it end its movement on top of another model, or like anywhere near another model, like an enemy model, or within engagement range of an enemy model. See, we're harkening back to engagement range, which is again is 1 inch. There are 2 big exceptions to that rule, however, and I emphasize the word big: monster units and vehicle units. Now, while Space Marines don't have a anything with the monster keyword in it, we have plenty of things with the vehicle keyword in it. And let me... Actually, wait a second. Do Dreadnoughts have the monster keyword? They do not. They have the vehicle keyword. How are they doing the walk? Oh. That's kind of busted. Okay. All right. All right. Anyway. So yeah. For example, our Ballistis Dreadnought. It has the vehicle keyword. It can move within engagement range of enemy units. It can end its move on top of another model. We just need to scoot them out of the way in order to do so because he has the vehicle keyword. He's a big boy. And because he's a big boy, he has a much larger movement range as well. 8 inches versus the Captain 6. Someone's overcompensating for something. Moving on. But there are other things that have far bigger movement ranges. For example, the Primaris Outriders. A whopping 12-inch movement range. The Storm Speeder, 14-inch movement range. What is the fastest Space Marine vehicle? Hang on a second. What is the fastest Space Marine vehicle? I wonder. Is it... Yeah, 9 inches for all the tanks. Actually, no, wait. What about the Predator? 10-inch movement range. Is it? It's got to be one of the Flyers. It's got to be one of the Flyers, then. Land Raider, 12-inch movement range. Repulsor is 10-inch movement range. Impulsors are 12. Drop pods, yeah, drop pods technically have no movement range. Landspeeder Storm 14. Yeah, here we go. All right. Stormhawk Interceptor. Movement range 20 plus. Storm Talon Gunship 20 plus. Yeah. Yeah, it's all the Flyers. They have 20-inch movement range. Massive. Absolutely massive. Warlock, you play Tau. Warlock, you play Tau. Melee is the last place you want to be as a Tau player. Warlock, melee is where Tau are the weakest. That is not where you want to be as a Tau player. I can tell you that right now. That is not a good place for a Tau player to be. But yeah, movement is very, very straightforward. Now, there are things known as advanced moves, or what was known back in the day as a run move. Or if it was a vehicle, it was also known as a turbo boost move. So what this all boils down to is if you want to advance a unit, you sacrifice their ability to shoot or charge that turn, which represents that unit putting all their resources instead of moving up the battlefield, stocking up the battlefield, weapons at the ready, running up the battlefield. Hello, how are you? So what this translates to rules-wise is you take the movement characteristic of your unit. So for example, I'm going to use a different Space Marines unit here for this example. If I were to take my squad of heavy intercessors, the heavy boys, their movement range is only 5, right? So they're a tad bit slower than the normal Primaris Marines. If I wanted to get them up the board faster, I can say, all right, my squad of heavy intercessors are going to make an advanced move. So I'm going to take their move, their movement value, which is 5 inches, and then I'm going to roll 1d6, and then add that resulting roll to their movement value, right? So let's say in this scenario, I take that d6, I roll, it rolls a 4, right? It rolls a 4. So I add that 4 to their movement value of 5, and so now their movement value becomes a whopping 9. right? So now I get to move the squad 9 inches up the board, you know, wherever I want to move them. It's just that they cannot shoot nor charge this turn. So it's a bit of a tactical... Oh, what's the word I'm looking for here? Trade-off. It's a bit of a tactical trade-off. You get your units into the position that you want them to be faster. They just forego the ability to dole out any sort of damage this turn at all. Because they cannot shoot, they cannot charge, right? Right. So now we come to fallback moves. Right? Oh, and something else I forgot to mention. Very important. Very, very important. During the movement phase, you don't have to move your models. If one of your units, say, is within charge range, which we will get to which we will cover when we get to the fight subphase. If one of your units is in charge range, or if one of your units is on an objective and you don't want to move them off that objective, you can just say that this unit is remaining stationary, or this unit is standing still. This unit is any form of that. Just tell your opponent, like, okay, I have this unit of Space Marines right here. They're on an objective, and they're going to stay on that objective. I'm not going to move them. They are considered remaining stationary. So, like, you're not forced to make a movement unless you have to either fall back or make a desperate escape, right? So, what a fallback move is like you can declare that your unit is making a fallback move, right? So, which means that if, say, one of your units finds itself within engagement range of an enemy unit, right? You're close to an enemy unit. You can declare during your movement phase that, okay, this unit is going to fall back. So what that does is they move up to their listed movement value. So again, in this scenario, let's just say my heavy intercessors got a little too close to one of to a unit of Tyranids. I don't want them to get bogged down in melee. I'm gonna declare that they will fall back. So they will move 5 inches away from the enemy unit that has cornered them. And again, you sacrifice their ability to shoot or declare a charge that turn, which is fine, because that is one of those, again, tactical trade-offs that you're going to have to make, that you're going to have to think about a little bit, right? And this also harkens back to the command phase during your battle shock test. If, for example, your unit is battle shocked, you will automatically have to take a desperate escape test. Which we will get to momentarily. However, I want to also emphasize one other thing. Your fallback, the unit that you just declared is making a fallback move, can move over enemy models and can move within engagement range of enemy models, just so long as you do not end within engagement range of an enemy model, right? Because at that point, it's just... you're foregoing any sense of fighting, you're foregoing any sense of attempting to fight or punch or shoot, etc., etc. All your units are thinking of at that moment is self-preservation. So, we've talked about it on many different occasions now. At this point, what exactly is a desperate escape test? They give you a very good example here. So, this poor squad of Space Marines here finds itself cornered on this side by a squad of Leapers and on this side by a squad of Termagants. Their controlling player has declared in his movement phase, I'm going to have them make a fallback move to get out of this situation. And in this situation, the only fallback move that they can make is this way, right? Which means they have to go through the squad of Termagants they are trying to escape. That is what triggers a desperate escape test. Here's how you do it. For every model in the unit, you take 1d6 and roll. And this is after you have moved, right? This is after you've moved everybody. And on a 1 or a 2, that a model in the unit is destroyed. So in this example, 5 models within the unit make a fallback roll, which means 5 desperate escape tests have to be made. And the rolls are 4, 4, 6, 1, and 2, which means 2 models in the unit are immediately destroyed, leaving 3 models in the unit safe in this desperate escape check. Now, in universe, you can think of that as this squad fighting to break out of a cornered situation and losing 2 members of the squad in the process, right? Again, I'm gonna sound like a broken record, chat, but you're gonna be hearing the phrase tactical trade-off a lot from me, because this is just one of those things that you have to keep in mind. In games of 40k, you can't leave your units, you can't let your units get cornered, you can't let your units get stuck in a situation like this. It's gonna be bad news for everybody. Trust me, just trust me. So now, the next thing you need to worry about in terms of movement is how do you go about moving over terrain? Because not every battlefield in the 41st millennium is going to look the same. Not every battlefield in the 41st millennium is going to look like a couple of hills and a cusp of trees. There's pipes, there's buildings, there's barricades, rubble, ruins, everything. Can you have a solo unit do a John Wick? I can only think of a couple of characters in the Warhammer 40k universe who could pull a John Wick like that. Slime Arbo, if you play Imperial Guard. Be'lakor, the Dark Master, if you play Chaos Demons. Either one of the Primarchs if you play Space Marines. So let's say Rabute Gilliman and Lionel Johnson. If you play Chaos Space Marines, who would be that equivalent? Who would be that equivalent? Cypher. Absolutely Cypher. Yeah. Definitely Cypher. Because Cypher's weapon loadout is literally just 2 pistols, a bolt pistol and a plasma pistol. There, that's probably the closest John Wick equivalent I can think of. That's probably the closest John Wick equivalent I can think of. I'm tired. Everything has a chance to be funny. Perso, same. Same. So moving over terrain, the rules for moving over terrain are incredibly simple in 10th edition Warhammer 40k. If the terrain is equal to or less than 2 inches in height, you can move it, you can move your models over it without having it impede your movement distance. However, if it is 3 inches and if it is above 2 inches, then it's going to start impeding onto your movement distance, right? So let's say, again, in my example, my heavy enters, my heavies, they can move over this Promethean fuel pipe easily, but this wall is in fact 3 inches in height, right? So let's say it took me 2 inches of movement to get over the pipe, 3 more inches of movement to get up the wall. They would end their movement on top of the wall, right? Right. That's how that works. That's how moving up terrain works. If your model has the fly keyword, however, normal move, advanced move, or fallback move, you don't need to worry about enemy models. You don't need to worry about terrain, whatever. You can just, yeah, this is perfect right here. The winged Tyranid Prime can fly because simply it has wings. So it has a movement value of 12. It just leaps over this squad of Terminators and ends its movement right on top of the building. That's it. TLDR, if your model can fly, ignore everything. Just ignore whatever it is you're moving over. Models, ruins, rubble, terrain, just like zoop, you're going. You're going. Now, during the movement phase, this is when your reinforcements can come in. When you're deploying your army at the very beginning of a battle, you would normally deploy them in what is very clearly marked out deployment zones, and they will differ depending on what mission you choose. But the most basic deployment zone is, oh god, is it 6 inches or is it 10 inches away from the board edge? It's a certain amount of space away from the board edge. You'll have that space to deploy your army. However, while you're deploying your army, you can say, oh, X unit is a reinforcement unit. They won't be deployed on the battlefield. They will be deployed later on the battlefield. And this is when you set them up during the movement phase. So when you set them up on the battlefield, they will always count as already having made a normal move, right? However, you have to get all of your reserve units on the battlefield before the end of the battle, because any unit of reserves you did not immediately place onto the battlefield by the time the battle ends is considered destroyed. And tactically, of course you would do that, right? Of course you would do that, because you would have to you can wait to set up one of your units for a later turn, but you know, in general, you want to get your dudes onto the battlefield as quickly as possible. And now we come to transports. Some armies will have dedicated transports, meaning like tanks or some other vehicle that your models will be able to ride in, sometimes physically, sometimes not. It depends on how big the transport is. The transports also have their own movement phases. And as long as a unit is embarked, that is the keyword here, as long as the unit is embarked in the transport, you use the transport's movement characteristic and not those of the unit that are inside. For example, for a very specifically Space Marines example, for the Land Raider Redeemer, it has a movement characteristic of 12 inches. So let's say I have a full squad of Space Marines in here along with, let's say, I don't know, a Space Marine captain. I move up the Land Raider Redeemer, it's full 12 inches, and then with the unit inside. So I'm not listening to their 6 inches, I'm listening to what's listed on the Land Raider Redeemer's datasheet of 12, right? Right. And some transports will have the keyword or the key phrase known as the firing deck, which means any number, a listed number, not any, sorry, I should be very specific here. A listed number of models that are embarked can open up a hatch on the vehicle and fire out of the vehicle, even like, you know, which is really, really cool. So for, there's actually a really good example of this. I need to find the tried and true Space Marine transport. The Space Marine Rhino. Ah, yes. The most popular transport in the Space Marine Army for a reason. You'll see that it has the ability of firing deck 2, which means 2 models that are embarked within a Rhino can fire from the top hatch during the shooting phase. Right? It's very nice. It's very good. Embarking and disembarking, it boils down to this. If your models end within 3 inches of a eligible transport vehicle, if they end the movement phase within 3 inches, they can choose to embark into that vehicle. So they'll literally just scoop them off the battlefield and say like, all right, they've embarked into this Rhino. They are now inside this vehicle here, which is tactically very good because, like, let's just say your army is coming under fire and you don't want to lose a key unit. So what you would do instead, roll up a transport during the movement phase, roll up, move the unit you want to save, have them end their movement in range within 3 inches of that transport, and just be like, all right, we're embarking into that rhino. They're safe. They are safe. Disembarking, same thing, must happen in the movement phase. So if there are units, if you have units in a vehicle, you want to get them out during the movement phase, you say, all right, I'm taking this unit out of this transport. You just set them up within 3 inches of the transport, and then that's it. You're set to go. They'll be ready to they'll be ready to act as normally in certain situations. So, yes, units that start your movement phase embarked within a transport can disembark this phase, provided the transport has not advanced or fallen back. If a unit disembarks before its transport moves, it can act as normal. If your unit disembarks after the transport has moved, it cannot move or charge this turn, but can otherwise act normally. Meaning, while it can't charge or it can't move, it can still open fire if it's got ranged weaponry. And this is something that's really neat movement tricks that exist in Warhammer 40k. So, for example, you move your rhino 12 inches up the board, right? You move your rhino 12 inches up the board. And let's say for this example, within that rhino, you had, because it can carry up to 12 models. Oh God. Where are my... Because it can carry 12 models, let's say you had a squad of 10 Stern Guard veterans in there, right? So you move them off the board. You move them off the board 12 inches, because that's what the movement range of the Space Marine Rhino. You disembark your squad of 10 Stern Guard, and they are within 3 inches of the Rhino. So that is a threat range of 15 inches, and then they can still fire. Let's just assume that the Stern Guard have their stock weaponry, which is 24 inches, right? So now that is a threat range of, I need to do math, give me a second. That is a threat range of a whopping 41 inches, right? So like, that's the kind of things you need to think about in games of Warhammer 40k. Like, okay, if I move them here, their guns have this range. All right. It is tricks like that you need to think about. And it's tricks like that your opponent is also going to be thinking about during the course of the game. Like, this is why I say movement is probably one of the key things that you need to think about the most in games like this. So if your transport happens to be destroyed, while it has a unit inside of it, your unit immediately must emergency disembark, and then you roll a d6 for each model that was embarked within the transport, and on a roll of a 1, that model's unit suffers 1 mortal wound, which means you could theoretically start losing models, right? Is it possible to do damage with a tank via just driving over something? Not really. Not really. You would have to either shoot at the transport and do damage to it that way, or you would have to charge the transport and attack it in melee to do damage that way. Speaking of shooting, we're on to phase 3, the shooting phase. How can you tell a model or a unit is eligible to shoot during the shooting phase? Simple. They're automatically eligible to shoot unless they advanced or fell back that turn. That's it. So if you decided to run your monster or your monster or your tank or your units or your dudes forward, they can't shoot. If they fell back, they cannot shoot. Other than that, go at it. They've got a ranged weapon on their profile. This is the phase for them. Models have all of their gear listed. So going back again to my example of Stern Guard veterans. Yeah, I'm switching up the music. I'm switching up the music this time around. So it's not just one song on loop. So yeah. I also love this song. It was like, yo, TMNT arcade games, absolutely my jam. Yeah. So, going back to my example of Stern Guard veterans, their weapons, let's assume they have the standard Stern Guard bolt rifle. They have a range of 24 inches. Chef, what does that mean? Well, that means, remember when I said visually determining what models are visible to whom? All the way back, little back ways. That means they're only eligible to shoot at things 24 inches, within 24 inches from where they are, because that is the range of the weapon they are physically carrying, or in this case are physically modeled with, right? This is the Stern Guard bolt rifles. So if they sight down an enemy unit that's within 24 inches of them, let's, for example, say an enemy squad of Tau Fire Warriors, because I know we have a Tau player in chat. Let's say that hapless squad of Tau Fire Warriors are 20 inches away from my squad of Stern Guard veterans. They're well within range of the Stern Guard bolt rifles. They've just found their target they're firing at this phase. Right? Enemies within their sights, they had clear line of sight, open fire. That is how the shooting phase will go down. A key thing to know is that some models will have a rule known as lone operative. This normally applies to leaders, anyone who has the leader keyword, or has the lone operative keywords in their own data sheet. And what lone operative means is that unless they are attached to another unit, if this model is alone, they can only be selected as the target of a ranged or shooting attack if the attacking model itself is within 12 inches. And that's just to denote or to portray the fact that trying to pick out just one person to target on an actively changing battlefield is very, very difficult. So you need to be like really, really close to them to see, right? So when you make a when you make a ranged attack, right? When you make a ranged attack, step one is determining if you can see your target. If you can, step two is to check the range of your weapon listed on your unit's data card, right? And then you compare that to where the enemy is. Again, in our example, let's say my squad of Stern Guard veterans can both see the squad of Fire Warriors they want to attack, and they are visible to every model in the squad. And they are within 24 inches, which is the range of their Stern Guard bolt rifles, right? Okay, they are within range, we get to attack. And now the weapon profile says they have 2 attacks each. So let's say I have a squad of 5 Stern Guard veterans, which means I am rolling 10 attacks. I'm rolling 10 shots from their Stern Guard bolt rifles in total. So I pick up 10d6 and then I roll. That's where this value comes in. the BS value. No, it does not stand for bullshit. In this case, the BS value stands for ballistic skill, which means this is how much you would need to roll on a d6 to make your attack hit their target, right? So in this case, I need to roll a 3 or above on a d6 for my stern guard. So let's just say, for this example, of the 10 d6 that I just rolled for shooting attacks, 7 of them managed to roll a 3 or better, which means 7 attacks hit, 3 attacks missed. Right? Right. So, the 7 attacks strike their target and deal damage. How is that determined, Chef? The strength of the weapon is a 5. Oh, it's a... What the hell is the toughness of a Tau Fire Warrior? Are they toughness 3? Are they toughness 3? I feel like they're toughness 3. They're weak. They're really weak. Which is why I was telling Warlock earlier, like, it's a really bad idea to get your Tau in melee, because they will get squished like a fucking bug. In any case, I'm going to assume Tau Fire Warriors are toughness 3. So the strength of the weapon I just shot off is a strength... Oh, I looked at the wrong one. It's strength 4, not 5. My bad. So, what does that mean? So, you take the strength value of your weapon, in this case it is 4, and you compare it to the toughness of the target that you were shooting at, right? So, strength 4 versus toughness 3, it's greater. The strength is greater than their toughness. I need to take the 7 d6 that hit, and then I need to roll them again, and I need a 3 or better to cause wounds or cause damage, right? Or cause a wound, not damage. Damage is something else now. But yeah, if, for example, I was shooting at something that was toughness 2, which I think is an Orc Grot. Yeah, I think Orc Grots and Nurglings, I think, are toughness 2. That's double. That's twice. The strength is twice the toughness. I would need a 2. If your strength is equal to your target's toughness, you're going to need a 4. So, for example, in a different example, let's just say, instead of shooting at a squad of Fire Warriors, my Stern Guard were shooting at a squad of Chaos Space Marines, which I know offhand are toughness 4. So I would need 4s to wound instead of a 3 or a 2, right? That's how you determine how to wound your target. So let's say, for example, let's go back to my original example. 7 shots from my squad of Stern Guard veterans hit that squad of Tau Fire Warriors. I rolled those 7 again, and let's say, again, for this example, 6 of those 7 shots were able to cause a wound. Now, what does that mean? That's representing the fact that the body armor that the Tau Fire Warriors were wearing stopped 1 shot, but was not able to stop the other 6. Right? So 6 wounds were caused. How much damage does that equal to? Each shot from a Stern Guard bolt rifle causes 1 damage. That is 6 damage caused to that squad of Fire Warriors. They would need to start rolling their saves. And yeah. that is the shooting phase. That is the shooting phase, essentially. Oh, right. Right. I just realized. They introduced critical hits, essentially, in 40k at this point. They introduced critical hits, which they like to call critical wounds. So, pardon me. A wound roll, if you roll a 6, an unmodified 6, when rolling to wound your target, it will automatically cause a wound. Right? It will automatically cause a wound. Everyone loves a crit, exactly. Unless you're on the receiving end of that crit, which in that case, oh no. Yeah, and speaking of critical hits, an unmodified hit roll of a 6 will always automatically hit their target. So if you needed like a 5 to hit your target and you rolled a 6, that's it. You know, that it hits their target immediately. Same thing with wounds. If you roll a 6 to wound unmodified, it causes a wound, which is really cool. So now it is the turn of the Tau Fire Warriors. They have just taken 6 wounds, which they've just taken 7 wounds, which equates down to 6 damage, right? Or sorry, they have taken 6 wounds, right? 6 wounds are on the board with a potential for 6 damage. They need to start rolling their saves, which is listed here on their data sheet, abbreviated SV, right? Abbreviated SV. So what this means specifically is what you would need to roll on a d6 to negate incoming wounds. So on my Stern Guard, that is a 3. That is their armor save. I believe on Tau Fire Warriors, they have a 4+ as an armor. I think they have a 4+ for their armor save. Let's assume a 4+. So they would need to roll a 4 or better to negate wounds. However, this is where the armor penetration value of your weapons comes into play. Armor penetration does what it says on the tin. If your weapon has an AP value of 0, then the roll to save against wounds remains unchanged. However, in this example, my Stern Guard bolt rifles happen to have an AP value of -1. So what does that mean for our poor fire warriors in this example? That means their armor save goes from a 4+ to a 5+. Meaning their armor save just got harder to make because the weapons I have are just that much better at piercing through armor. Right? You see how that works? So instead of having to roll a 4+, they roll a 5+, which is really, really hard to make on just 1d6. So let's say for this example, the controlling Tau player, because of the AP value on the Stern Guard bolt rifles, fails all 6 saves, which means that is now 6 incoming damage on that squad of fire warriors. Correct? So what does that mean? That means now you have to look at their wounds, their number of wounds, because each model has a certain number of wounds it can have. For example, my Stern Guard, much like most Space Marines, have 2 wounds apiece. So it would take 2 shots, essentially, to kill 1 Space Marine, right? So for example, one Stern Guard can take, let's say one Stern Guard takes 2 damage over the course of this firefight. I roll to make the save, I save 1, and I fail 1. He's still alive, but only has 1 wound remaining. That's how that works. Tau Fire Warriors, on the other hand, aren't quite so lucky. Because if I remember correctly, Tau Fire Warriors only have 1 wound a pop. Right? And so in this example, our poor Tau player failed 6 saves to try and keep his unit alive, meaning that unit takes 6 damage, meaning that 6 Fire Warriors were just lost out of that unit. Which means he now has to take 6 Fire Warriors off of the unit, which reduces the unit's size. So let's say, for example, I was shooting at a full squad of 10 Fire Warriors. That means that squad size has just decreased from 10 to 4. Which means during that player's ensuing command phase on their turn, they would need a battle shock test for that squad of fire warriors. Right? And he's sad. Exactly. And he's sad, Perso. Exactly. By the way, this is one of my favorite songs from from this Paper Mario game. It's so good. It's such a bop. I love it. Okay. Right. And then we get, oh yes, the different weapon abilities. Because let's face facts, chat. In the 41st millennium, do you think guns would stay normal? Absolutely not. 41st millennium, you know for a fact people are gonna find really inventive and weird ways to shoot things. Now, I'm not gonna go through all of the different weapon abilities here, because there are a lot of weapon abilities here. But in general, whatever is listed in like this blue sort of color is what your weapon will have. So for example, in this Stern Guard bolt rifle, it is an assault weapon. It has the heavy keyword, it has the rapid fire keyword, and it has the devastating wounds keyword as well, right? So let's take a look at just those 4 keywords in this case. What is a rapid fire weapon? Rapid fire weapons are known to have increased number of shots depending on how close or how far away they are from their target. If the unit is within half range of the weapon, increase the number of attacks made with that weapon by X amount. So, for example, if that squad of fire warriors, because remember I said they were 20 inches away, so they only got 2 shots each. If that squad of fire warriors just happened to be 12 inches away, that's within half range of their bolt rifles. That means instead of 2 attacks each, the bolt rifles would get 3 attacks each. And since there was a 5-man squad of Stern Guard intercessors, that means they would be, a 10-man squad of intercessors. That means they would be throwing out a whopping 3 times 10. They would be throwing out a whopping 30 shots. Yeah, rapid fire weapons get silly. Rapid fire weapons get silly, chat. I can do math, I swear. Rapid fire weapons get silly. What else do they have? They have the assault keyword. Meaning, assault weapons can still be shot even if the bearer's unit advanced. So now we're starting to get into abilities that circumvent established core rules, right? Because every game system needs at least some ability to circumvent established core rules, even just momentarily. So, let's say, in that previous example, once again, Stern Guard have a movement value of 6. Let's say I wanted to run them to get a little closer. And I rolled a d6 to add it to their movement characteristic. Let's say I rolled a 4. They're moving 10 inches forward. Normally, according to the main core rules of Warhammer 40k, they should not be allowed to fire their weaponry. However, since their Stern Guard bolt rifles have the assault keyword on them, I can still fire that weapon. right? I can still fire that weapon. How is that fair, you ask, Chef? How is that fair? It's to represent the fact that the Space Marines undergo a level of training that is above and beyond a normal human equivalent in the Warhammer 40k universe, so they are able to advance forward with a very heavy and very precisely crafted weapon. It's to represent them being able to run forward and still have the wherewithal to pick out a target as they're running, sight down their gun, and pull the trigger without missing. As the kids these days say, they built different. As the kids today would say, they built different. Right? What else do they have? Heavy and devastating wounds. Okay. Heavy weapons. If instead of running my Stern Guard veterans, I chose for them to remain stationary on the spot, then the heavy keyword would kick in instead of the assault keyword. And the heavy keyword means add 1 to your hit rolls if this bearer's unit remained stationary this turn. This represents, again, them instead of running forward to find a target, they've already found their target, and they're, instead of moving to get within range, they instead plant their feet, brace their gun against their shoulder, sight down the weapon sight, and are ready to fire. All that preparation means that it will be easier for them to attack their target. So what that means is, instead of needing a 3 to hit with their Stern Guard bolt rifles, they would need a 2 to hit instead of a 3. Meaning it is now easier for them to hit, which means it is far less likely they start missing shots. In case you haven't gotten the message by now, this is why I like playing as Space Marines specifically. Their tactical flexibility is unparalleled. A lot of people, myself included, call them the Swiss Army knife faction of Warhammer 40k. Meaning they are good at doing like 12 different things at any given time. But they're not specialized in doing one thing, right? They wear many hats, but they're not hyper-focused on one specific thing. For example, orcs. Orcs like to be in melee. Their shooting, pretty garbage. But their melee, out of this world. So they like to be up close punching people in the face. Space Marines can do that. They can get up close and personal. They can start punching people in the face. They can also stay at range and pick people off one by one with their weaponry. Again, Swiss Army knife, tactical flexibility. That's personally why I like playing Space Marines. And that's, in my opinion, that's also why I think Space Marines are the perfect beginner's army for anyone new to Warhammer 40k. They are very forgiving in, if you make a mistake. They're very forgiving if you make mistakes with them. And they're very strong. They're strong enough so, they're resilient on the tabletop, and you can play a longer game and learn more as you go. Right? Right. What was the last keyword they had in their weapon? Devastating wounds. Devastating wounds. Devastating wounds. I think it was back up here somewhere, right? Is it? Yes, no, no, yes. Ah, it was down here. Okay, devastating wounds, yes. So, a critical wound inflicts mortal wounds equal to the weapon's damage characteristic instead of normal damage. So, remember what a critical wound is. If you roll a 6 to wound, it'll automatically cause a wound and cause damage, right? You don't have to roll anymore. You rolled a 6, that's it. You caused a wound, damage is incoming. Mortal wounds are something that Games Workshop introduced, I want to say back in 6th edition, either 6th or 7th edition. Mortal wounds was a game changer. A literal game changer, because now you had a way to cause damage, because besides armor saves, you have something known as an invulnerable save, which can save against wounds that even pierce armor. Some units in Warhammer 40k have a rule that is known as feel no pain, which means even if they take damage, they can roll a d6 again, and if they roll a 5 or a 6, they ignore that damage. Mortal wounds is the way around all of that, because what mortal wounds means is that you cannot make any save against a mortal wound. The wound happens no matter how good your armor save is, no matter how good your invulnerable save is, it's happening. You are taking that damage. So let's say, of the amount of wounds I caused 6 wounds with this shooting attack against that squad of fire warriors, correct? And he had to roll to make saves. So let's say he actually made some saves. Let's say he made 2 saves out of that, right? But let's also say that I just so happened to also roll 2 6s, which means devastating wounds now triggers, which means that damage goes through no matter what, right? Again, tactical flexibility. It's wild. It's wild. All right, now we get to the fun part. Here's where my orc side starts kicking in. Now we get to the charge phase. As long as your unit is within 12 inches of one or more enemy units when the charge phase begins, you are eligible to declare a charge unless you advanced or fell back, unless you're stuck within an engagement range unit of the enemy model, or unless your unit is an aircraft, because planes cannot charge other units. Which is a funny thing to think about, honestly. Which is a very, very funny thing to think about. So, let's say you're eligible. You must be within 12 inches because within 12 inches, but not within 1 inch, right? You gotta keep that in mind. You gotta keep engagement range in mind here, because now let's say, all right, I'm going to, again, harkening back to my previous example, my 5 stern guard. Let's say instead of being 20 inches away, they were 12 inches away, right? Or let's say they were even closer, just for the sake of argument. Let's say they were close. Let's say they were 10 inches away from that squad of fire warriors, right? There are 5 stern guard veterans versus 4 remaining Tau fire warriors, right? So now I'm thinking, as the quote-unquote commander for the Space Marine Army, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I need to take care of that squad of fire warriors. They're sitting on an objective I need to get rid of that squad. I'm within charge range of them. I am going to declare a charge now, right? So I measured the distance. They're 10 inches away from that squad of fire warriors. That's within 12, but not also within engagement range. I'm eligible to declare a charge. So what you would need to do now is you need to pick up 2d6 and roll. And the resulting total of that 2d6 roll is your charge distance, is how far you can charge. Because it is entirely possible to fail a charge, right? I'm 10 inches away. I need a 10-inch charge. I need to roll a 10 on 2d6. Let's say I fail. I roll a 7. I can't do anything, right? My unit remains where they are. The Tau unit remains where they are. They get to live for at least another round, right? Charge phase over. We move on. However, again, for argument's sake, let's say I roll that 2d6 and I happen to roll exactly a 10. Right? That's exactly what I needed to roll, and now we're off to the races, and we're in the Tau player's worst nightmare. And now we're in the Tau player's worst nightmare scenario. One of their units is about to be stuck in melee. So, what happens then is I take my 5 Stern Guard, I move them 10 inches to within engagement range, or even base-to-base contact with the remaining 4 Tau Fire Warriors. That is a successful charge. The charge has been made. Melee is about to happen. Fists are about to fly. Or in the case of Space Marines, chain swords and combat blades are about to be drawn. Right? Oh yeah, you can declare a charge through terrain. You just need to take into account the height of the terrain in your charge distance, right? So in this case, you needed a 2, 3, 4, 4.5, call it 5-inch charge for this leaper to get to these eradicators, right? So that's also something to just keep in mind. If you can fly, again, and as usual, you can just ignore that. You can ignore intervening terrain and ignore models. You need a 10-inch charge, you fly up there. You make that 10-inch charge, that's it. Dinner time. Right? Right. We're on to the fight phase. We're on to the fight phase. So, who fights first when it comes to melee? In general, if you made a successful charge move this turn, the unit that charged gets to fight first. They get to start swinging immediately, right? And it makes sense because they're the ones who ran into battle. So, like, you know, again, going back to my example, the Tau Fire Warriors, right? They're a little bit in disarray right now. The squad size of 10 was just dropped to a squad size of 4. They're a little bit in disarray. They're trying to line up sights on, like, where's the enemy? You know, we need to fire back. We need to retaliate. Then they see the 5 Space Marines that just fired at them, charging up the hill at them. Right? They're sprinting at the squad of poor hapless Tau Fire Warriors. Right? So, much like the weapons, the ranged weapons, melee weapons are also listed on the datasheet of your units. So each member of the Stern Guard Veteran Squad, keep in mind, once again, I have 5 of them, is equipped with a close combat weapon, which if you wanted to model that on them, like physically model that on them, I know for a fact all the Space Marine kits nowadays have like combat knives modeled onto them. So you could actually model, instead of holding a gun and a pistol, or like holding their gun like this, you can have their gun in one hand and then the combat knife in the other, right? So that's just to denote what a melee weapon or a close combat weapon looks like. So the charge has been made. The Tau Fire Warriors are now caught in melee with 5 Stern Guard veteran Space Marines. So, once again, the melee weapon, the close combat weapon, has its own weapon profile, much like the ranged weapons did. Correct? Correct. So, and since I, as the Space Marine player, made a successful charge move during the charge phase, my Marines get to swing first. Before the Tau Fire Warriors can swing back, assuming any of them survive, because this is a 4v5 fight at this point. This is a 4v5 fight at this point. So, if we look at the close combat weapon profile, you will notice they have 4 attacks each. That is 5 Space Marines in the squad. That is 20 melee attacks coming. Oh boy. That is 20 melee attacks in total. Which means, by the way, chat, yes. As this controlling Space Marine player, I have to somehow pick up 20 d6 and roll them. There's an easy way around that, but there's an easy way around that. You just roll it in batches. You pick up 10 d6, you roll, you keep track of how many hit, you pick up the 10 d6 again, and you roll, and then you keep track of how many hit. So right? So let's say in this example, of the 20 attacks I just rolled, let's just say, for example, 15 of them ended up hitting. Because I only need a 3+ to hit. Those are very favorable odds. Those are very, very favorable odds, right? So of those 20 attacks, I roll, I land 15 hits. That's a lot of stabbing going on right now. So, we compare the strength of the weapon, which is strength 4, to the strength of Tau Fire Warrior, which we determined was 4 previously, so I would need 4s to wound them. Right? I would need 4s to wound them because now we don't have any AP like the guns did. It's AP 0 versus AP -1. So I would still need, I would just need 4s to wound them. So I pick up the 15 dice, I roll again, and let's say for the sake of this example, once again, I roll 10 successful wounds, right? Of the 15 attacks that landed, I roll 10 successful wounds, right? Let's think about that let's think of it that way. So now 10 wounds have gone in, but this time with no AP. So now the Tau Fire Warrior player gets his normal save. Instead of a 5+, because the AP -1, it is now just a straight 4+ of Tau Fire Warrior armor. So what that means now is he gets to roll, he picks up 10 d6 and rolls, and let's just say he makes a decent amount of them. Let's say he only fails, of the 10 incoming wounds, 6 go through, right? So he saved 4 of them, but 6 went through of the 10 wound rolls he had to make. It's a 50-50 shot. So each one is 1 damage. 1 damage goes through. 6 damage goes through. There's only 4 Fire Warriors remaining. There's only 4 Fire Warriors remaining. They're only 1 wound each. That squad is considered destroyed. Right? That's how that works. Now there is a way around it. Again, there are certain ways to bend the rules in your favor, and that is a rule known simply as fights first. And it does what it says on the tin. If your model's datasheet, if your unit's datasheet has the fights first rule, they automatically get to fight first during the fight phase. Even if they were charged, they get to fight first. Right? So, yeah, at the beginning, I actually skipped this, which is my bad, but when you make your charge move, you end within engagement range of the unit. Now you get to pile in. Right, which means you take all of your models and you move up to 3 inches. And the goal is to get as many models in base-to-base contact with the enemy unit that you're fighting as possible. Because people within base-to-base contact can fight. Right? People within base-to-base contact can fight. So, for example, in this example here that they give, 2 Tyranids are in base-to-base contact with this squad of Stern Guard Space Marines. After the pylon move, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are in base-to-base contact with this squad of Space Marines, right? However, also, if members of the squad that are attacking are in base-to-base contact with a model in their unit that has been in base-to-base contact with their melee target, they can also fight. Which means of this squad of termagants, 8 of them are eligible to attack. These 2, sadly, have to miss out. Right? That's how you determine who gets to attack when. And then when you, let's say, in my example, you're able to destroy a unit in melee, you get to do what is known as a consolidation move, which means you get to move 3 inches. What's it called? You get to move 3 inches, but you must end closer to the closest enemy model. And if the above is not possible, just move to the closest objective marker, right? So that's your consolidation move. And that is a player turn in 10th edition 40k. You go through 5 phases in a player turn. And that is one player's turn in a battle round. 5 phases per player turn. 2 player turns per battle round, and then you move on to the second battle round. And then the process repeats over and over again. Move your units into position. Command phase. Bring in reinforcements if you got them. Move on to shooting phase. And it's that kind of streamlining that I actually really like about 10th edition. Everything moves so much faster in 10th edition games now, from what I've heard and from what I've seen online. Just as a quick touch, I'm just going to touch upon the point of stratagems. These are what you spend your command points on. The core rules have stratagems that can be used by any army, and each army has their own set of specific faction-specific stratagems. Like, for example, where are my Space Marine stratagems? Found them! So, like, for example, counteroffensive. So after an enemy unit has just fought, if you have 2 command points sitting in your back pocket, you can spend those 2 command points to automatically make one of your units fight next. Instead of waiting for the attacking player to go through his list of units who are eligible to attack, you can spend 2 command points and say, no, I'm going to have my unit fight next instead. And there's nothing your opponent can do, because you've just employed a stratagem, right? And the most common stratagem that you, as a player of Warhammer 40k, are probably going to use is the most common stratagem I have used in my time since stratagems and command points were introduced into the game, and that is the command reroll. You are going to want, I am saying this from experience, you're going to want to save at least 1 command point to use for command reroll, because it does what it says on the tin. Spend 1 command point and reroll any dice roll you just made. You missed an attack, spend 1 command point, reroll it. You failed a battle shock test and you lost an objective, spend 1 command point, reroll that battle shock test. You failed a charge roll, spend 1 command point, reroll that charge roll. Right? Didn't get enough damage on your weapon, spend 1 command point, reroll it, try to get higher damage to destroy that key unit. This is the most used battle stratagem for a reason, because it's the most useful one. It is the most useful one. However, there are limitations to how often you can use stratagems. There are two specific limitations for stratagems. Number one, you need to pay the command point cost. So if you wanted to try and use counteroffensive, but you only had one command point instead of two, you can't use it. Fairly straightforward and simple. You wanted to use a command roll, but you're out of command points for the phase? Too bad, you can't use command reroll anymore. That's limitation number one. Limitation number two, the same stratagem cannot be used more than once in the same phase. You can use it again next turn, but you can't just spam stratagems in a single phase. So you need to save command reroll for one very, very specific roll, right? Like, save it for your most important one. Save it for your most important roll that you need to keep an eye on, right? Yeah, I'm not going to go through all the stratagems because there are quite a lot of stratagems, actually. But what we can do now is very briefly, I emphasize briefly, very briefly, just there are some units that that did not make the jump from 9th edition into 10th edition at least for Space Marines. And one of them is a unit that has actually been missing for a few editions now, and I don't quite know why. It's a unit in the Space Marine, the old Space Marines Codex, called the Legion of the Damned, which is like one of the coolest Space Marine units to me, because it was the spirits of vengeful Space Marines that would come back onto a new battlefield. Like, they would just deep strike in and just show up and just start blasting foes to help the whatever army, because they could be added to any Space Marine army. It was really neat. I'm just kind of sad they're no longer around. But in general, because I'm going to keep this very brief, because I mentioned on Twitter and on Discord that the stream would be kind of short today, as I continue to ramble on and on and on and on about everything and everything. But in general, I'm kind of okay. I'm very happy with the current state of the Space Marines army in 10th edition, because there's some really cool stuff in here. Most of the units within the Space Marines army list remain unchanged, just maybe a little like adjusted for both like points and like toughness, attacks, etc., etc. Points costs. Did I download the points list? I'm like 90% sure I did. Whomst? I'm like entirely certain I did. Yeah, no, I definitely did. Okay, yeah, I did. Yeah, points costs have been adjusted accordingly. I can't find the sheet for it at the moment, unfortunately. But in general, there's 3 levels of battle. Like each level denotes a battle size. You got 1,000 points, 2,000, and then I think it's 3K? Something like that, yeah. 1,000 points, 2,000 points, or 3,000 points, yes, because of the different battle sizes now. Which is cool, honestly. And then then of course you have, what's that other? Combat Patrol, which is a new way to play, which is more like skirmish level. Instead of like army size, it's more like skirmish level. Which is like roughly less than 1,000 points per side. which is nice, which means you can get in a game very, very quickly, because games of Warhammer 40k, even at 1,000 points level, tend to go on quite a long time. Like in general, if I were to offer new players of Warhammer 40k an advice, if you want to get a game in, even at the most rudimentary level, at the most beginner level, which is 1,000 points, I would say you and your friend, whoever are playing, set aside an entire afternoon for it. Because games of Warhammer 40k tend to go on quite a while. So like set a weekend afternoon for it. Set aside a decent chunk of time for it. Unless you're playing Combat Patrol, which is like skirmish level 40k, which is not that involved in points. Those games tend to go on very quickly. Those games tend to go very, very quickly. So yeah, that was my deep dive into all the new stuff in 40k 10th edition. I like that everything is on one data sheet, so you don't have to go thumbing through a big old book for rules. You can buy like physical data cards for your armies. You don't have to though, because just like do what I did, just download them. Like literally, they're all on a PDF for you, ready to go immediately, which I like a lot, honestly, which I like quite a bit. It's nice. It's very, very nice. The new 40k app, right? There's a new 40k app as well, where you can actually army build using the app, and all of your data sheets are already there. You just pick what army you need, which is also really cool. By the way, which is also really, really neat. I'm glad Games Workshop is starting to modernize what is essentially a very, very old game at this point. 40k, let's remind people how old 40k is, and by extension, how old I am. So Warhammer 40k got its start in 1987. That is the same year I was born. This game system and myself are the same age. This game system and myself are the same age. I am literally as old as Warhammer 40k is. Jesus fucking Christ. You hear that sound, chat? That is my soul evacuating my body. You hear that sound, chat? That is my soul evacuating my body. Oh, Lord. I would love to do a breakdown of all the new stuff in just the Space Marines, faction, but I think I might just call stream here at this point, mostly because A, as I mentioned earlier, I'm sleepy, and B, I'm also now quite hungry. So what do you say we just do this? Chat, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. This was fun. You already know, everyone here, everyone who knows me knows how much I adore Warhammer 40k, right? Everyone here knows just how much I adore Warhammer 40k. So I could go on for multiple hours about this game. I want to do more painting streams eventually. That is something I want to bring back. That is something I want to bring back, is I want to get more painting streams done. Not just for here on YouTube, but also on Twitch as well. Also on Twitch, because painting streams are something I've done in the past, and I want to bring them back because I have such fun doing them. Like legitimately, I have such fun doing them. And I'm glad y'all enjoy, you know, at the very least, a cursory glance into my hobby obsession. Hey, Jack Guppy, how are you? Oh yeah, no, dude, I love B. Hollis. I pre-ordered his cookbook, and I'm very excited for it to arrive, because it arrives I think at the end of the month, which is great. And you can all expect Chef Bites episodes that are just me just doing all the references and like the recipes from Dylan's cookbook, because you know what's gonna happen. You know what's gonna happen, chat. You know what's gonna happen. All right. Wow, this is a bit of a bittersweet moment. You just witnessed the last stream with this model. You just witnessed the last stream for this model, chat. Oh my god. How's that feel? I will see you all tomorrow on Twitch, twitch.tv/NJChefVT, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's my 5-year stream anniversary. It's a new model debut. The new lore video is done, and I will be showing that off tomorrow as well. The new model is done, and I'll be showing that off tomorrow as well. There's a ton of new emotes on Twitch as well. Tomorrow's gonna be a fun day, chat. I hope to see you there. I really hope to see you there. It's gonna be wild. It's gonna be wild. And before I forget. Again, join YouTube membership if you haven't already. It works just like Twitch subs. We are having our first. We're having our first members only movie night. That's gonna be next Friday. So if you want to be a part of that, go right ahead and join membership, and I will see you there. Okay? Okay. Have a good one, everybody. I'll catch you tomorrow. And I'm gonna tell you right now, everything's gonna look real different when you get there. Everything's gonna look real different when you get there tomorrow. Have a good one, chat. Have a good night. It's dinner time for me. Later.